What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Hey, come on in. I didn't think I was gonna go live today, but child, we got a little something to talk about with Diddy. So we're gonna get in and we're gonna get out. Come on in, hit the like button, and let's get this party started. You're gonna get in and we're gonna get out. Now, shouts out to Tracy, as always. Tracy got me these documents. I was doing my Big Brother live, child, and Tracy sent these documents. Hey to the people, you guys coming in, come on in. So Diddy's attorneys filed paperwork today in his criminal case. And the memo that they sent to the judge basically is saying they need to know the names of the accusers in order to prepare the best defense for Diddy. So we're going to read through it. We're going to read through the document and we're going to talk about it, okay? We ain't going to talk long, but we're going to talk about it. All right, let me share my screen so you guys can see what I see. All right. All right, I'll make it big on the screen. I'll put myself in the back so you guys can see it on the screen. And I'll make it a little bigger. And then we're going to go ahead and get this party started. All right. Oh, that's what I thought I was doing. Okay. All right, let me make it a little bigger, and then we're going to read through it. As you can see, it was filed today, October the 15th. This is a longer document, but we're going to read through it. This was sent to the judge. You see there, the Honorable Judge S. We're just going to call him Judge S. You see the name of the case, U.S. States versus Combs. You see the case number. So let's read through it. We write on behalf of our client, Mr. Sean Combs. Pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure, the request that the court direct the government to identify its alleged victims so that Mr. Combs can prepare for trial and to allow defense counsel to ensure compliance with Local Rule 23.1. So let's get into the background. And we know this case is unique in part because of the number of individuals levying allegations against Mr. Combs due to his celebrity status, wealth, and publicity of his previously settled lawsuit, and the grand jury leaks and false inflammatory statements by the DHS agents. Now, remember last week they were alleging to the judge that there was a leak and that people would share information with the media that should not have been shared. So that's what they're talking about right here. This has had a pervasive ripple effect, resulting in a torrent of allegations by unidentified complainants, spanning from the false to outright absurd. Yesterday alone, anonymous accusers filed an additional 6 lawsuits. Counsel for those accusers recently convened a press conference prior to filing, at which he claimed to represent 120 accusers, making outrageous and deeply prejudicial allegations, including violent assault, abuse, and abuse of minors. This publicity stunt broadcast on Instagram included a 1-800 number that reportedly received 12,000 calls in the first 24 hours. These accusations came on the heels of more than a dozen lawsuits previously filed and currently pending, several of which have already been discredited, but only after irreparably damaging Mr. Combs' character and reputation. These swirling allegations have created a hysterical media circus that, if left unchecked, will irreparably deprive Mr. Combs of a fair trial, if they haven't already. I want to go back and look at some of these footnotes. So the first footnote says, we respectfully move for a bill of particulars under Rule 7F without prejudice to our ability to make additional motions for a bill of particulars with respect to other deficiencies. And then the other footnotes, they're citing the different cases. Okay. In light of the number of number of anonymity of accusers on October the 7th of 2024, Mr. Combs asked the government to identify its alleged victim. Counsel has conferred with the government, who opposes disclosure of alleged victim names on this stage. So they've already actually had this conversation, and of course, you know, the U.S. government opposes that, right? Of course, they oppose that. Okay. Let me see what y'all are saying in the chat. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Let's read through it. The court should require the government to identify its alleged victims. This is part 2. Bill of particulars are appropriate to permit a defendant to identify with sufficient, particularly the nature of the charge pending against him, thereby enabling defendant to prepare for trial to prevent surprise and to interpose a plea of double jeopardy should he be prosecuted a second time for the same offense. And then they cite case law. These principles are applied with particular care when the government charges RICO as it did here. As the Second Circuit Court explained, with the wide latitude accorded the prosecution to frame a charge that a defendant has conspired to promote the affairs of an enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, comes an obligation to particularize the nature of the charge to a degree that might not be necessary in the prosecution of crimes of more limited scope. With these principles in mind, the circuit held that Davidoff, that's one of the cases they cited, that where the government failed to identify the victims of uncharged schemes that it intended to include at trial, the district court committed irreversible error by failing to grant a bill of particulars. So they found case law where it was found that it by not knowing the names, it hurt the case. So, and part of what they're saying with the double jeopardy piece is, of course, we know that double jeopardy in this country, you can't be prosecuted for the same crime twice. So what they're saying is, if we don't know the names of these people, he could be possibly defending himself against the same crime twice. We don't know who these people are. Okay. Here, the indictment broadly alleges that for decades, Mr. Combs abused, threatens, and coerced undisclosed and unidentified women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, and that he engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse toward women and other individuals, including verbal, emotional, physical, and actual abuse, and manipulating women to participate in that activity. This could be interpreted as treating Mr. Combs' entire sexual history over the past 16 years as part of the alleged criminal conspiracy. And I understand what they're saying. Like, everything he did wasn't illegal, allegedly. You know, sometimes sex was just sex. So, okay. The government should be required to identify its alleged victim for several reasons. First, without clarity from the government, Mr. Combs has no way of knowing which allegations the government is relying on for the purposes of the indictment, other than victim one, which we all know was Cassie. There is no way for Mr. Combs to determine who the other unidentified alleged victims are. The number of potential alleged victims and the length of time alleged in the indictment both weigh in favor of the bill of particulars. And the alleged conspiracy has operated for a significant period of time, more than 3 years. Moreover, to the extent Mr. Combs is forced to mount a defense against criminal allegations that the government does not seek to prove at trial, he is entitled to know that. I'm trying to read through the stuff that's in parentheses. Absent a bill of particulars, the government is forcing him unfairly to play a guessing game, one made all the more challenging by the onslaught of baseless allegations that disparate plaintiffs are lodging at him, for the most part anonymously, in civil cases designed to exact a payoff from Mr. Combs and others. So let me say this, you guys, and I understand where everybody is coming from. But basically what he's saying is, this man got so many lawsuits, we don't know which one y'all are using in the indictment and which ones are just criminal cases. So we don't even know where to begin. This man has, at this point, he's got at least, let's just say 10 lawsuits against him, civil lawsuits. And what they're saying is, we don't know which one of these lawsuits the government feels like is valid enough to include in the indictment, and which ones they say, we don't really feel like this has a lot of merit, or we don't have any proof or evidence to support this, so we're going to push this one to the side. And they're saying, listen, we need to know which cases y'all are using, so we need to know what our defense needs to be. Let's keep reading. Second, given the anticipated amount of discovery and the expected time required for its production, Mr. Combs will be unable to adduce the identities of the purported victims from the discovery without the assistance of the government. Mr. Combs also anticipates that the discovery will contain a voluminous amount of evidence of consensual sexual activity. I want to come back to that. Somebody remind me to go back to that. I don't know if I got any mods in the chat, but Chuck, you're reliable. Chuck or Kim, Miss Baythane, y'all remind me to go back to that part that I just read. I'm gonna read it again so y'all know what I'm talking about. It says, Mr. Combs also anticipates that the discovery will contain a voluminous evidence of consensual sexual activity. So remind me to go back to that, making it all the more difficult for Mr. Combs to ascertain which of his prior partners now claim years later that they felt coerced. Even if it were possible to ascertain the victim's identity from the discovery, and especially given the volume of anticipated discovery, it is unfair to require Mr. Combs to spend significant time trying to unearth the alleged victims' identities. In other words, he had sex with so many people, child. He don't know which ones are trying to come back later and say this was illegal versus this wasn't illegal versus child. Third, the publicity of these allegations and civil suits seriously undermines Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial. The attorneys and plaintiffs making these allegations are not bound by Local Rule 23.1 and can therefore make and have made limitless and unchallenged statements to the press. Mr. Combs' denials, on the other hand, are constrained by Rule 23.1 because he did not know which allegations are credited to the government and thus come within the ambit of the local rule. Under the circumstances, the court should require disclosure of the government's alleged victims and allow Mr. Combs to respond to allegations of other uncredited and unrelated accusers. Interesting. So basically they're saying the government can say what they want to say unchecked, but he's limited in what he can say to defend himself because he don't know what the hell he defended himself against. Okay, so there's that. And then there's this additional filing here with exhibits. Now, this is from October the 7th. This says, we write on behalf of, I think we talked about this one already. Is this the one we already, hold on. Yeah, we already talked about this one. I think. Well, let's read through. We're going to read through. It's not that. We'll read through the first part because I think we talked. I know I didn't read the letter, but I think we talked about what was in the letter. Okay. We write on behalf of our client, Mr. Sean Combs, regarding serious threats to his rights to due process and fair trial. The government must identify who out of the many pretend victims it considers. Okay, so this is the letter that they originally wrote to the attorneys, and the attorneys opposed it, and then it went to the judge. Okay, that's what this is. They're basically saying the same thing, but they're talking directly to the AUSAs here, and then that first letter they were talking to the judge. So let me just scroll down here. I'm going to read you guys this part. We demand that you immediately turn over all exculpatory material in your possession, including, but not limited to, the following. So this is what they want. All information indicating the participation in the freak-offs was consensual, including evidence and statements from alleged victims and other participants that all participants were adults capable of deciding whether or not to participate. 2, To the extent any participants consumed drugs, alcohol, they did so voluntarily. 3, at no point did any participant express any unwillingness to participate. 4, to the extent any participant expressed unwillingness, they were not forced to participate. B, all information showing that the alleged victims and witnesses are lying, exaggerating, or are otherwise unreliable, including all information relating to the alleged victims' financial, reputational, personal, or professional motivations to claim abuse. C, all information showing that prior to the alleged victim's motivation to lie, they were not afraid of Mr. Combs and never reported, whether formally or informally, any instances of coercion, force, or abuse. D, all information showing that to the extent there were any disputes between Mr. Combs and any alleged victims, those were disputes related to infidelity or other interpersonal matters and not related to alleged force or coercion to participate in a party. In activity, not a party, activity. F, all information relating to the government's failure to fully investigate alleged victims, including failures to obtain the alleged victims' phone records, email records, travel records, arrest records, medical records, drug abuse, rehab records, draft memos, financial records, and attempts to commit extortion. G, all information relating to the government's failure to fully investigate the alleged victims' agency and freedom during the alleged periods of coercion and abuse, including failures to investigate the alleged victims' financial records, transportation records, employment records, and housing records. Child, this thing go all the way up to K. Okay, hold on. H, all information regarding individuals who claim to be victims but who have not been credited or corroborated by the government. Indeed, many of Mr. Combs' accusers have already been discredited. I, all information relating to the leak of the hotel footage by law enforcement, including communications by and among government agents about the leak, internal investigations relating to the leak, and the identity of the HSI agent or agents who are responsible for the leak. J, all information suggesting that the decision to prosecute Mr. Combs was racially motivated, including information relating to the government's previous unsuccessful attempts to investigate and prosecute Mr. Combs, and information relating to the government's decision to charge Mr. Combs with a racially motivated and discriminatory statute. That J is interesting. Any information, and K, any information inconsistent with the facts asserted in the affidavits filed in connection with search warrants in this case, including, and then that is redacted. That last part has been redacted. So I'm assuming that maybe there's something that's in the paperwork for the search warrants that has been redacted. So here's the thing. If Diddy were my client, I 100% understand what they're saying and what they're asking for and why they want that to happen. Absolutely. Diddy got all these lawsuits. He don't know who is who and he don't know who we're talking about a span of 30 years. We now have lawsuits that go back to the 90s, right? So we're looking at, and again, hey boo, and again, I'm not defending Diddy before y'all get all up in the comments about it. I am saying that from that perspective, I understand where the lawyer is coming from, saying, listen, you want us to be able to sift through 30 years of this man's sexual history and figure out who accused him, what the circumstances were around it, what history they may or may not have, right? This could be an ex-girlfriend that got mad because of how they broke up. This could be a disgruntled employee. This could be somebody that tried to, what up, Big Daddy? Hey, Lexi. This could be somebody that tried to get a contract with Bad Boy. Like, I don't think it's ridiculous for his attorneys to ask for that information. Now, I'm not saying that they're entitled to it. I ain't go to nobody's law school. I don't know the answer to that. But I do think that it's reasonable for his attorneys to say, listen, this man got 10 lawsuits against him, and we don't know which one of these lawsuits that y'all have already vetted. And like, out of those 10 lawsuits, let's say the government vetted all 10 of those lawsuits and they only found validity in 4 of those lawsuits. That's still 4 too many. I understand that. That's still 4 too many. But what I'm saying is now we can throw them other 6 out and don't have to worry about spending time trying to defend those 6. Let the civil case, let the civil courts handle that, because our focus is the criminal. We don't know these people's names. We don't know what the circumstances are surrounding them. You know what I'm saying? Is it mandatory for it to be public? That's what that is. I don't know the answer to that, because that's a legal question. You have to ask Pam. I don't know the answer to that. It doesn't sound like it's mandatory if it hasn't been done. The attorneys are trying to get it done. I mean, but I'm gonna be honest with y'all. And y'all ain't gonna like what I'm getting ready to say. Y'all ain't gonna like what I'm getting ready to say. Unless they are a minor or they were a minor when it happened, I don't see why they can't put their name on this stuff. Don't say it. Well, I done said it now, G. I done said it now. That could jeopardize their safety. Safety reasons. I understand why the women want to keep their names. You know, I understand why they do, but I personally, I understand the argument. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying I understand the argument. And again, if I were Diddy's attorney, this is absolutely something I would be asking for. Now, again, I ain't nobody's lawyer. I ain't go to nobody's law school. I don't have no case law, no precedent. I don't know whether this is standard operating procedure. I don't know none of that. I'm just saying I understand. If you sue for civil, yes, the name needs to be out there. This isn't a criminal case. I think the judge should know at least. I agree to a certain extent. He wants to bully the people. The court of public opinion will shred them before they make it to court. Yeah. And again, I understand there's some safety concerns. I do. I get it. I definitely get that. Just because Diddy is behind bars does not mean that he doesn't still have reach, or even the people that allegedly he may be connected to. So you think it's a tactic to scare? I don't think it's a tactic. I don't think it's a tactic. I think they legitimately want to know who these people are. Because think about it. You are a 50-something-year-old person. Let's take Diddy out of the equation. Let's throw Diddy out of the equation, right? You are a 50-year-old woman or man that has had a healthy sex life. All of a sudden, you now have these lawsuits against you. There's no name attached. And you are expected to defend yourself in a criminal case. That's a hard thing to do when you don't know who's accusing you and what the circumstances were and what happened. Like, you have the synopsis, like that one lawsuit we read yesterday where literally the synopsis was 2 paragraphs. It was, I was invited to a Diddy party in the Hamptons. I went, I was assaulted. That is literally it. They said that they were associate. They said they were connected. They said they got invited because of their association with one of the partners, one of the companies that was partnering or something like that. Literally, it was 2 paragraphs long. How the hell did he supposed to know who that is? Even if he's guilty, let's just say he's guilty of everything he's being accused of. How is he supposed to defend himself against that one situation? Let's say that's the case that the AUSA picks up and uses as part of his criminal defense. So now his attorneys are Diddy's supposed to remember this person from the 90s. He's supposed to remember the circumstances surrounding it to defend himself. I don't know why the Echo employee doesn't want to speak out, sir. The whole case hinges on your identity. They can wait until the trial. The fool doesn't know who he's been with half the time. I don't think that's fair for him to wait until the trial. Like, again, throw Diddy out. I know it's Diddy. Throw Diddy out. I don't think that's fair, because how can he mount a defense if he has to wait until trial to find out who's accusing him? Isn't that a basic tenet of our judicial system, that you get to face your accuser? How can he face his accuser if he doesn't know who the fuck is accusing him? Right. Some of the cases, yeah, he should, like the Echo case. Yeah, if that's you know, those are allegations, but if that happened, absolutely, he should know. How many cases did R. Kelly get charged for? How many cases did Bill Cosby? Oh, I don't know. Face his accuser at trial, but how do you defend yourself if you don't know who's accusing you? Hell, he might mess around and be defending himself against the wrong situation. And he done told on himself it was something that he wasn't even being accused of doing. Again, I understand how how a lot of y'all feel about Diddy. I get it. But I'm just saying, I understand the argument. I'm not saying that I think Diddy needs to, get out and that Diddy didn't. I ain't saying none of that. I'm just saying I understand the argument. That's all I'm saying. You're right, Willie B. I'm not defending Diddy at all, but from a defense perspective, his legal team should have this information. Right? You can't defend yourself if you don't know who the accuser is. Under normal circumstances, I'd agree confronting accusers and all, but most defendants of civil suits don't blow up cars or... Hold on. Hold on. But that's but Jane, you said under normal circumstances, I'd agree confronting accusers and all, but most defendants of civil suits don't blow up cars or pistol whip people. But we're not talking about his civil cases. We are talking about his legal cases. We're not talking about a civil case. They're not talking about the civil cases. What they're saying is we have a right to know who these people are. And they also have a right to know what stories the government felt weren't valid. I'm not saying that you have a right to know. I'm saying this is what they're saying they have a right to know. Let me fix that. Both R. Kelly and Cosby got to see and defend themselves against their accusers. The women took the stand. Absolutely. Absolutely, they did. And even in the case of R. Kelly, the Jane Does were Jane Does because they were underage at the time. They in R. Kelly's case, the women who were Jane Does because they were underage at the time of the alleged incident, even if they were over the age now. And maybe these women will take the stand. I don't know. But okay, thank you, Choice. Thank you for bringing me back to that. One Choice says they can review the tapes. Everybody is on them. Right. But that takes me back to the point that I wanted y'all to remind me about. All of those tapes are not evidence of a criminal act. Some of those tapes are just porn. It might be with famous people, but it's PORN. So again, watching the tapes still will not tell Diddy's attorneys which one of these people are accusing him. Shouldn't the accuser's names be in the discovery phase? And can the judge put a gag order to attach heavy penalties to keep the identities of the victims to only... Well, there's already a gag order. Yes, Abby, I agree. But that's what's not happening. That's what they're asking for. There's already a gag order for discovery. But that's what they're asking for. They're asking for that information, those names. They don't have them. But that's what they're asking for. And the AUSA is saying, nah. So that's what the argument is from the best of my understanding, of my non-legal understanding. We, the public, don't have a right to know. Defense wants names to go public because they know the public will harass them, and this will have an effect on silencing them. But I thought the judge already I thought there's already a gag order. I thought, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought there was already a gag order. I could be wrong. The gag order is why we can't see the tapes. The gag order shit. Yeah, I thought there was. Thank you. I thought there was already a gag order. Yeah. Yeah. Where's our legal team? We need a decision on this. There should be a precedent for the special circumstances. Well, the attorneys did cite case law. Now, Pam can probably give you more of a legal breakdown. So y'all can go check out Pam. She can give y'all more of a legal breakdown. And would there be a tape for the bodyguard's assault if it was done in a van outside? I don't know. You know, the reality is, from my understanding, there are a lot of tapes. So there's a lot to sift through. There's a lot to look at. There's a lot of, and again, does every tape mean that? Let's just assume, let's just walk down this road, y'all. Let's assume for a minute there's a lot of tapes. And there's a lot of PORN on those tapes. Does that mean that everything we're looking at is criminal? Maybe some of those people there were there willingly. Maybe they consented, and maybe they were down for the down. Maybe they were down for the get down, which is what I'm sure Diddy is going to argue, right? It's up to the government to prove otherwise. Yeah, I believe there was a gag order. One choice says, when has a gag order ever stopped high-profile violent offenders? From doing what? I don't know what you mean. From doing what? Stop them from doing what? The gag order is so that certain information doesn't get leaked. You said stop high-profile violent offenders from doing what? I don't know what you mean. At one choice, we don't know the names of every R. Kelly accuser like that John Doe. But he testified in court. The John Doe testified in court. So even though we, the public, don't know who he is, R. Kelly in his defense knew who he was. You see, y'all understand the difference? They're not necessarily saying that the information needs to be public. They're saying we need the information. I think, and again, that's my understanding. Maybe my understanding isn't correct, but it's a gag order, so we won't get the information anyway. That information is for it's for Diddy's attorneys. His attorneys are saying we need these names, and we need to know which one of these cases outside of Cassie, because everybody knows Cassie's case, but outside of Cassie's case, we need to know which one of these cases you guys are including in this legal indictment. Which one of these cases did you find to be valid enough that you are building this criminal conspiracy, aka the RICO, and what is it that you're using, and what case are you using? The man has 10 cases. The government is, at least 10 cases at this point. The government is not using all 10 of those civil cases. So they're saying we need to know. All of the Jane Does were not made public, but all of those Jane Does testified, and the defense knew who those Jane Does and John Does were. In R. Kelly's case, we learned that with the documentary Surviving R. Kelly. They testified, and we found out after the trial The ones that wanted to be identified, we found out who they were after the trial, but the defense knew who they were. And that's what Diddy's attorneys are asking. We want to know who these women are and men, who these people are. That's all they're saying. Same thing with Bill Cosby. Some of those women did not go public with their accusations, but if they were a part of his indictment, Bill Cosby knew those names, and all of those women did come out. I believe all those women did eventually come out. Now, again, for the people who were allegedly who were minors when it happened, I understand them staying as Jane Does or John Does. I understand that. But if they were over the age of 18 when the alleged assault occurred, I do think that Diddy's attorneys should have that information. Now, that's just my opinion. Again, I didn't go to nobody's law school. That's just my opinion. The government is going to investigate his employees and how they organize, finance, and arrange the F-offs. It's not about the F-offs, but the criminal conspiracies. Right. That's exactly, Candace. So just because you have videotapes of a bunch of people having orgies, that's not, I think we're, and we had this conversation last week, you guys. We're conflating freak and sex with a criminal conspiracy. Because what Diddy is, from that letter, it sounds like the argument is, hey, those women were there of their own free will. Yeah, you got a bunch of tapes of me and my friends having sex with a lot of women, maybe men. But they were all there of their own free will. It was all consensual. I was not coercing anybody. I did not illegally give anybody any, put drugs in people's drinks and force them to drink. Like, he's saying, I didn't do anything illegal. We were just freaky. That's what his argument is. So just saying, well, you'll have tapes of me having sex with people, that's not the point. You know what I mean? That's not the point to say, well, you have tapes of him having sex. Do y'all know how much tapes they said they got? Do y'all know how much footage they said they have? Even the government said, we don't know when we're going to get through going through all of this evidence. And we don't know what is real and what is just, again, we don't know how much of this is a criminal conspiracy versus Diddy just having sex. I also think that some of the plaintiffs may be remembering things differently from when it happened originally. I would think that if the government had the footage prior, these would be criminal. Maybe. Orgies have been going on since the Greek child. They sure have. Well, he did not let these people know that they were being recorded. That's a crime. We don't know that. Again, how do you know that they did not know? You're assuming that these people didn't know they were being recorded. They even in some of these lawsuits, they're saying they know they were recorded. Cassie says she knew she was being recorded because she said he used them as a fear tactic. They knew they were being recorded. No, they knew they were being recorded. Yeah, in that document, it's multiple terabytes. I Am Chase said 1 terabyte is 500 hours of video, right? So if they had 3, okay, Lexi said she heard over 8 terabytes. So you do the math. If they have over 8 terabytes of footage, 500 hours on each one, there's a lot of damn hours to go through. And again, that doesn't mean that all of that footage is sex. It could be Diddy in the studio. It could be Diddy with his friends at a pool party. It could be footage of unaired videos or unaired interviews. Like, it doesn't, just because they took it doesn't mean it's evidence. Like, it doesn't mean that there was a criminal activity going on those tapes. Yeah, for those of us who were around back in the day, of camcorders, y'all know how we would just have our camcorders and we would just be in our dorm rooms or at our friend's house or at a cookout or at a party, and we had I know what the math is, y'all. I get it. I get it. I knew the math. I just was saying, okay, thank y'all for putting it in the chat. Thank you. 4,000. I know the math. Anyway, but anybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s, all of us got a bunch of VHS tapes or those camcorder tapes somewhere full of a bunch of shit, useless activity. Us playing cards, us at a pool party, us at a cookout, us at the skating rink, us at the mall, us goofing off at the park. Like, it doesn't mean that all 4,000 hours are Diddy doing shit he ain't supposed to be doing. Right. And who is sitting there watching all of that stuff? Do you know how mentally, oh my God. Can you imagine having to watch Diddy have sex over and 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 over? Can you imagine that being your job? That doesn't even take into account who else was on them tapes. And I read that the camera recorded 24/7 whether he was home or not. And I heard other celebs use his homes when he wasn't there. That makes sense because we know that Diddy had multiple homes over the years. I remember one time reading an article where Diddy said he doesn't pack luggage because he was saying that all of his houses have everything he needs. So if he had to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, he didn't even need luggage because once he got to his house in California, it already had clothes and shoes and it had everything he needed. So and we know over the years, he's had multiple homes in multiple parts of the country. So that makes sense that your friends would be like, hey, you're not in town. Can we stay at your crib on Star Island for the weekend? Cool. So so if that's true, if what Lexi just said is true, let's just walk down that road for a minute. If it's true that Diddy's security foot whatever recorded 24/7, and let's just say for the sake of argument, don't cuss me out. Abby, don't drop no B's in the chat. But let's just say for the sake of argument, let's say Jay-Z and Beyonce said, Diddy, we're gonna hang out at your Star Island mansion for the weekend. We flying in for the weekend. We don't feel like getting a suite. We just gonna stay over on Star Island. We're gonna hang out on Star Island for the weekend. Can you imagine if Diddy and Jay-Z and Beyonce decided to get a little freaky deaky by the pool? Now Diddy got a tape of Jay-Z and Beyonce having sex. Doesn't mean it was an illegal activity. That's a married couple doing married couple shit. But now he got a tape of it. So now the government comes in and they seize everything. Doesn't mean that everything they have on tape is a criminal activity. That's true too. Ronald said maybe now we'll find out if some folks said they left before the after party actually stayed for the after party. Now that's there you go. There you go. Who would stay knowing he recorded everything? Who said they knew he recorded everything? I know what I just said a few minutes ago when somebody said whether they were recording or not. I'm saying there was some women who said they knew he recorded, and then knowing that you're on video surveillance versus we're in a room together having sex and there's a camcorder in the room. Those are two different things I'm talking about. Right, Abby. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. My point is Beyonce and Jay-Z weren't doing anything wrong, but if Diddy has 24-hour cameras rolling and he caught footage of something like that, and now he has it in his archives, and the government comes in and they seize all of his footage, doesn't mean everything that the government has is an example of a criminal activity. That's the point I'm making. And I just used them as an example. But that's the point I'm making. Also, if he recorded them in his home, that's not illegal. To my knowledge, it's not. People have Ring cameras inside of their homes all the time. I know at the house in Turks and Caicos, they had cameras outside. Like, remember, Evie, they had a camera outside on the deck. So, like, when we were out on the deck or we were in the pool, there was camera out there. Now, there's not supposed to be a camera inside recording us, but there probably was. There probably was. I don't think it was any in like the bed, any of the bedrooms or bathrooms, but there probably was cameras in the house, certain places in the house, like the common area and stuff. But we know there were cameras outside. We saw them. You can record every space in your home without telling your guests except the bathroom. It's not illegal, but it's cringy, and I wouldn't know it. What if he recorded to protect himself and his famous friends? That's interesting. Yeah, you late, Rod, because we about to get out of here, child. I'm just rambling. We just talking at this point. So I'm gonna say this, you guys. This is what happens in court cases, in criminal cases. They file, especially the defense attorneys. The defense attorneys are going to throw the kitchen sink because they're defending their client. And the more expensive attorneys you have and the more you paying them, guess what? The more time they have to write these briefs and to come up with different legal strategies and all of that. And that's what's happening. Like, that's what's going on. So we can't let ourselves get mad and pissed off every time the lawyers are doing their job. Their job is to defend Diddy and to try to get Diddy off. Now, we feel how we feel, but they're just doing their job. So they're going to try to find every angle, every defense. The judge hasn't made a decision about whether the judge agrees or disagrees, so we'll keep that in mind. Don't forget that Diddy's bond appeal is still in the Court of Appeals. I do not know when they will make a decision. But again, that is before the appeals court, and their argument for why Diddy should get bond. Remember, if you guys were listening to Pam's legal opinion it was a very well-written brief, right? Again, you don't have to like or you don't have to agree with Diddy getting bond, but it was a very well-written brief according to what Pam said, and they brought up some good points as to why Diddy should get bond. And I'm not saying that Diddy will get bond, but I'm saying is don't be surprised if he does. That's all I'm saying. When you look at the bond, if you go back to that brief and you look at what the legal precedent is in the state of New York for bond, based on the brief. Now, again, that just because they wrote a good brief don't mean it's right. Just because they wrote a well-written brief doesn't mean that what they said is accurate, and that doesn't mean that the Court of Appeals is going to agree. But all I'm saying is just don't be surprised. Can attorneys file motions such that certain identifiable info is redacted? Yeah, they can do that. The Court of Public Opinion is going to trash this case. He shouldn't. He literally was trying to run away a few months ago. The man is a flight risk. I heard that he might have been trying to run the night that they arrested him. I didn't hear that from my eye in the sky. I heard that from somewhere else. But I heard that, he may have been trying to dip out because he did get arrested at like 2 a.m. But I don't think so. When I say I don't think so, I clearly don't know. I don't know why. I don't know. But that would have been interesting for him to wait all that time, and then, but maybe he woke up and was scared. Maybe shit got real to him. I don't know. In Heard versus Depp, there were several pretrial motions filed that were not made available to the public until after the judgment was rendered. Once the case decided, the info was made public. Yeah, a lot of times, I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna get out of here because I ain't know I was gonna be here an hour. That wasn't my intent. I thought I was gonna be like 30 minutes and be out. But what I will say is this. What I will say is this. We become hypersensitive about the criminal process when we are exposed to the criminal process, because when it's a case like this, or when it's Depp versus Heard, or when it's R. Kelly or Bill Cosby, or these high profile cases, we become a lot more sensitive to how court cases work. The reality is this is standard operating procedure. This is what happens in a court case. Somebody gets arrested, and depending on, their attorneys, they start. Y'all done seen Law and Order where they get them blue backs, and the defense, they want to suppress the evidence. They want this thrown out. They want that said. They want to subpoena a witness. They want to put the cops on trial and say, oh, did you follow proper procedure? It's all a strategy, because the object of the game for a defense attorney is to get his or her client off. So doing whatever they have to do to get his or her client off, we don't have to like it. We have every right to make up our mind as the court of public opinion on somebody's guilt or somebody's innocence, as long as we're not serving on the jury, obviously. But hell, I don't live in New York. It ain't a snowball's chance of hell that I'm going to be subpoenaed for his jury. So I have a right to have an opinion, right? It's my opinion. But I think that we become so overly sensitive, and I say we, and again, if this don't appeal, if this does not apply to you, then let it fly. But we become so sensitive when we decide to pay attention to how a court case works. A lot of stuff is stuff we're just not familiar with, or we don't know, or is new to us. And I'm pointing at myself as well. But understand that what's happening is standard operating procedure. The only reason why we even talking about it is because it's Diddy, child. Lord Tracy said, let her mama sit on the jury. Lord have mercy. We'd be in trouble. Which is why we need to revamp our justice system and not only be concerned when the case features a public figure. That's two different statements you just made, Xavier. You said revamp our justice system. Why do we need to revamp the justice system? It's what I just said isn't about revamping the justice system. What I said is about us being concerned about the justice system. But that's anything in life. We don't care about voting until it's a marquee election. We don't care about a speed bump on our street until it affects us. Like, that is, unfortunately, that is human nature. We only care about shit that affects us. We don't go to public meetings about shit that unless it directly affects us. We don't show up for school board meetings. We don't show up for city council meetings. We don't show up for hearings on the state level. When it's not a presidential election, people don't show up to vote. Hell, half of them don't show up to vote for the president, but they damn sure don't show up to vote in a mid-year election. They don't show up to vote for the mayor. That's why when people say, how did this person keep getting elected for 30 years? Because the same 30 people kept voting. The same 30 people kept voting. So he kept getting elected district attorney for this county, and he kept being able to do whatever the hell he wanted to do for 30 years. Because the same 30 people kept showing up to vote. And they were all his friends. I think we put ourselves or people we know on the circumstances subconsciously and internalized accusations. We do. I think we do that a lot. And that's why we only care about certain things, because we only care about stuff that affects us. And a lot of us, and I say us because I'm guilty as well, a lot of us do that. All right, y'all. I did not mean to come down here and talk for an hour. My eye in the sky has a lot going on, so I haven't heard a lot. If there's something that I could share, I will. I sort of gave y'all a little breadcrumb in our conversation tonight, but it ain't nothing that I haven't already told y'all. Now, whether y'all choose to believe what I tell y'all or not, that's enough conversation. But it ain't nothing that I ain't already told y'all. But yeah. So, all right, y'all. I gotta go. I will talk to y'all. Oh, excuse me, Lord. Oh, Lordy. Okay. I will talk to y'all later. Peace. Did I watch Matlock? Nah, I'm here. I'm here talking to y'all. How could I watch it? All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.